guys. This is the Football Truth podcast with myself, Taylor Davidson, the founder of Football Entangled. Right now, I am here with Oliver Sorensen of FC Midtjylland of the Danish Superliga. It's a great pleasure to have him on. He spent a few months doing the way of the natural and experiencing a new way of working inside the Entangled tribe. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, awesome, man. I think it's a really amazing thing nowadays that on social media, you know, a lot of young players and obviously other professional players, they do get some kind of insight into, what is an actual professional footballer, like how do they talk, how do they walk, how do they move, but it's very much skewed in terms of they see advertisements, they see highlights, they see like promo edits, but they don't really know what it's like to be in the locker room with a group of other professional men that are actually top athletes. So I'm really excited to have you on, and we can kind of dive into like what it's like and kind of talk about what's really going on at the higher level in terms of health and recovery and performance. But
Yeah.
before we go there, would you like to give everyone just kind of like a background on like your childhood as far as like playing sports? How did you develop? Like when did you really know that you loved football and that you wanted it to be, like your full-time profession?
Yeah. I started playing from a very young age, just like normal, and then from when I started, I just didn't look back, and I just played throughout my childhood, and at the same time I played handball. If
Hmm.
you know, I don't think it's that big in America yet, but I played that
Yeah, yeah.
until I was until I was 11. Otherwise, I just played football because at 11 I had to choose what I wanted to,
Hmm.
go forward with. So yeah,
Yeah, I think the importance of multiple sports when you're growing up really gets overshadowed a lot nowadays. Like even myself, I played like tennis, baseball, a little bit of American football, and all of these different sports really help develop that basic level of function in the human body and kind of expand what I call the movement vocabulary. So it's very interesting hearing that like you played like a lot of handball. Was there any other sports that you kind of like dabbled in growing up?
not really. I tried badminton
Uh,
for,
Batman,
for
okay.
yeah, for a few weeks. It's the three biggest sports in Denmark, so I
Ah, okay.
uh, tried it all. Uh, but no, I think I had to choose from an early age what I wanted to do because of the opportunities I got. But yeah, I've seen you talk about doing different sports. Then now I play every time I have a day off or something. I'll play tennis or paddle tennis or whatever
Okay.
to try something new. And I recently I tried playing golf as well. So
Golf, okay.
when I have the time, I'll just try different stuff because I enjoy it, and I actually get a feeling like the day after or some days after that I feel more aware, sharp. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of the proprioception in terms of the body kind of leveling up its awareness. So that's really cool. I think everyone should kind of try to introduce those things on their off day. Going playing basketball maybe like for fun with their friends, or like tennis, ping pong,
Yeah,
badminton,
sure.
all these things. Like yes, like you can like I think yes, you have to be careful about what kind of like volume that you're putting on your body, depending on like your match schedule with football.
Yeah,
But 20, 30 minutes not gonna is not gonna really ruin your recovery. And I think it honestly probably makes it even better because you just are
Yeah,
getting into like the fun factor of actually enjoying yourself. And that along with it comes with a lot of positive like hormone production and neurotransmitters in terms of just smiling, enjoying yourself and not being a robot and just being like focused on recovery, but you don't know how to smile, you know?
yeah, it's true. I feel after those days, I feel more ready the day after. So I just feel like I'm getting more energy than losing,
Mhm.
even though I maybe do 1.5 hours or something.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
awesome. I mean, yeah, I think the main thing is like you just do it until you don't enjoy it anymore. And once
yeah,
you aren't having fun anymore, that's the signal to stop. It's pretty common
yeah.
sense, but a lot of people don't can't really can't really utilize those common sense type things.
No, it's true. It's hard for some people.
Yeah. But so now tell me a little bit more about so after you were age 11 and you were kind of more inside of the football academy system, what is that like?
It's it's hard to say because I haven't tried anything else than being
Yeah.
in that environment. So, but yeah, it's nice. I moved away from home at 13, so I
Okay.
went to
Wow.
Midtjylland already there and lived with a family up here, and it's just it, the youth was the best time. I get friends and we go to the same school, and I'm with them every day and we play in the weekend. So I only remember good stuff from yeah year under 13 to now. I'm a senior player,
Mhm.
so it's just, and of course as you get older, the it's more competitive.
Yeah.
But I think along the way, because I've known all of the guys from such a young age, of course it's competitive, but we just enjoyed each other's company and then trained together and played in the weekend for 7 years straight. So it's just good memories to have.
That is that's fantastic. I think like the fact that you've been able to kind of grow up and mature into a man like alongside these other guys from the age of like 13 all the way into the first team, it's a huge achievement.
Yeah, and it's a special feeling knowing that you've been on the whole journey together. So it's just fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine it's something really special when the kind of that team environment and that aging process almost like almost like a rite of passage where young boys are kind of molded into first team first team footballers, but also hopefully molded into um wise wise old men
Yeah, yeah,
eventually, obviously. I
yeah.
think in America
Eventually,
it's very different as far as soccer goes. There's not really that straight pipeline from age 13 into a first team. I think some clubs it's developing, but it's a big process here in the US with all the other existing s- sports infrastructure and college
yeah,
and like drafts and stuff, and there's less of that like homegrown feeling.
yeah. Homegrown feeling.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but but how did because I know you've gone on loan a few times. How are those experiences different from your time in the academy and like with the club that you had known for so long?
It's obviously very very different
Mhm.
being alone. Yeah, you can say at a different club. But yeah, when I was 18, I went to the first division to to play for half a year.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that was a good experience because I learned that there's different ways to do stuff, and I learned to interact with other people. And then, as you say, the second time here, more recently, I went to Norway, and that's a bigger step because it's a different country, and then I'm really alone, and I have to interact with the teammates. So I think most of all, of course, I grew as a player, but the times I went out, reflecting on it afterwards, I feel like more I grew as a person,
Hmm.
and I learned how to be part of different, you know, clubs and different groups.
Hmm.
So reflecting on it now, I'm happy that I went away both times, and I feel like now I grew a lot. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting this dynamic from being a homegrown player at like a major club, and then kind of being loaned out and then going to a totally different environment that
Yeah,
is oftentimes not the same level, like of facilities, of coaches, of um, all the chefs and all the different pieces of the club aren't at the same level as what you might have been used to in Denmark. And then there's the other aspect where there's a big pressure on you to perform. Isn't that
yeah,
right?
yeah. Because the whole purpose of going on loan is to get playing time.
Yeah.
So when you arrive, you feel like, okay, now I really have to show how good I am, because if I can play going out on loan, then it's going to be even harder when I come back to play at Midtjylland. So of course there's a bit of pressure, but if you think too much about it, it just becomes unnatural. So of course I thought about it, and I think even from the first loan move to the second loan move, I improved a lot at just being present and just playing football, because I know myself good enough that if I start thinking too much, it becomes I'm not the same player. So yeah, but of course there's pressure, but yeah, you can cope with it if you reflect enough.
Yeah, that's kind of uh the the magic sauce is making pressure look effortless. And that's one of the big things that people overlook, especially, comparing a professional footballer at like a real level versus like an amateur, is just the fact that they understand their qualities, they understand what they can do, like they understand all their strengths and their weaknesses. So there's no self-doubt. There's no like obviously yes, that there's pressure, like you said, but you know your quality and you know
Yeah,
what you deserve because of all the years of training and work and just of what you possess. Like you know that you're built different. I think that's one of the things that confidence, this mental side and the physical side don't connect a lot. But from my point of view, it's very interconnected. Where if you have the physical in the right place, that will help the mental, and then if you have the mental in the right place, then that will also help the physical. And the problem is if you only focus on one of them and you leave out the other one, you're kind of you know making a chair uh with like one like missing stool. You know,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I even for myself, like when I played in Greece, I was in a hostel. Um, bli- I was 18 years old, living in a hostel for 8 months, and I had like five new roommates every night. So it was
yeah. That's
qu-
crazy.
it was quite the adventure as far as maturing, because like I come from a small beach town, and then I was in a big urban city in Athens, Greece. So I can relate for sure.
Yeah, that's different for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But so let's now now like you're back at FC Michelin. Let's talk about kind of what, like, first of all, what kind of like sports science um protocols or like data, um sports science protocols, recovery tools, what kind of things are you being asked to do, and do you find that a lot of these tools are beneficial or helpful?
Um, I think the stuff they want us to do is a lot of the stuff you tell us not to do.
Yeah, that's the way it
You
goes.
know, a lot of gym work and different recovery tools, and it's just it's a hard environment to be in, because of course they look at what I do and I've had several discussions with the strength coach and the physios, and they tell me you have to do some gym work, and I just say yes, and I try not to, but it's gone so far now that they really they force me to do stuff.
Mhm,
So yeah, it's crazy, but they want. We have a lot of different stuff to measure the strength of our groins and hamstrings and how high we jump and all that stuff.
mhm.
And we do that a lot, but then there's just gym work all the time.
And so do like, for example, does every player at the club all kind of like is every player like bought into that way of training, or are there some players that are more into it and there's some guys who are like, it's like it's whatever, and then there's some guys who are like against it.
Yeah, there's a few guys who's against it, and then I think it's a mixture of
Mhm.
being lazy and not wanting to do it. But there's definitely a lot of people who buys into the stuff they do and think, okay, this will help me. And I've had a few chats with some of them where they're asking me, why you're not doing this, and I say, uh, if you know what I if you know what I know, you wouldn't be doing it either. But they just laugh at me. But I think it's a mixture of being lazy, and we have a lot of South American guys,
Mhm.
Brazilians, and they don't like it. They just want to play football, and it's funny that some of them are very 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 good players, and the guys who's of the Brazilian who's maybe not the best are the guys who's doing a lot of work in the gym. So it's funny to look at.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've seen time and time again, where the guys who are so hyper focused on the gym work, they really excel at their numbers in the gym. They're oftentimes the guys who are not playing on the field. And then
Yeah,
the guys that the club spends millions of dollars on to bring in from South America, they're the ones that just want to play football, and they're not really bothered by all these other things. And they're the guys that are worth millions, and the guys that were playing, and the guys who are doing the best on the field. And for the most part, like we just saw, Ajax sold Anthony to Manchester United for
yeah,
I think for almost 100 million pounds, and Ajax bought him from Brazil. Ajax didn't really like buy him when he Ajax didn't buy him when he was like 12 years old and then build him up in this like manufacturing process.
no,
They saw talent, they wanted talent, they bought talent. He played a bunch, got better, and then they sold him for for a lot of money. That's kind of
yeah,
how it works, really.
yeah. It
Um,
is.
like one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to touch on was on this idea of like having like strength tests for the groin and for the hamstrings, and having like your vertical jump test, and kind of how gym work as a whole, the whole paradigm is very segmented, where you're kind of isolating specific parts of the body, or you're isolating specific movement patterns of the body.
Yeah,
And I think this really comes from kind of how professionals in that industry are taught to think. They think in a very isolated manner, where they try and separate all the other like factors, and then okay, if the hamstring is the problem, then we got to fix the hamstring. Well, in my experience, and like how so many other people talk about, is the body does not work that way. The body works in a very holistic manner, being integrated. So you can't take one piece out of the whole and then try to manipulate it and then put it back and expect it all to work together
no,
at the end of the day.
it's
So
true.
yeah.
It That's how we work. Isolating different muscles and stuff, and then you just feel like you move a lot worse days after. And if I get away with not doing anything, just going out after playing in the sun, I just feel a lot better. And even sometimes my numbers go up when I haven't done it for or haven't been forced to do it for a long time. And then
Yeah.
I think it was last week I was forced to do some work, and then some days after my numbers dropped, both groin and hamstring, and I've done like the same amount of training. So if you just think to yourself and reflect on the different stuff you that happens in the day, it's easy and it's obvious to see what works and what doesn't work.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really important thing, is actually experiencing it yourself in your body, feeling the effects of what you're doing, and then making educated, you know, making educated conclusions from your experience. So many
Yeah,
people refuse to actually trust in their body, and they want to trust in it. They want to trust in a piece of paper that they found online saying something. You know,
yeah,
there's very much this loss of individuality, and being able to actually trust your experiences, trust your own two eyes, trust your sensations. People are almost conditioned into into distrusting their body,
mm,
and almost thinking that we shouldn't trust what we're actually seeing with our eyes, that we should actually, you know, and we should put all of our eggs into this basket, and this basket is kind of based on what I would call a house of cards. A lot of theories, assumptions, and paradigms that go back to the medical industry.
yeah,
But next, I wanted to discuss this idea of the natural. I think we already like touched on it a bit, as far as, at the club, like, you have a lot of players from South America, and these guys just want to play football.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny they're so good at it. It's because they just play. They don't do all the other stuff. And
Hmm.
there's two people that's really, where it's really obvious. The one, Pionicisto,
Hmm.
he's so good. And then Evander. And it's just, they make it look so easy. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to describe. You just see them and they do stuff, and I'm thinking, wow, it's so obvious that they're just good at football because they're a footballer. They're not a bodybuilder, and they don't
Hmm.
feel the need to do other stuff than just play football and enjoy. It's so obvious when you see one.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for everyone watching is understand that you're saying this, and you are a first team player at a club that is a part of Champions League. So even you are saying that there's this gap, or there is this super obvious um quality in these top players, that when you really see them and understand, okay, what's the difference between like muscle driven and fascial driven? How does the body actually work in movement? And then you can see, the guys who are more of naturals totally exhibit every one of these things
Yeah,
on the pitch. And then, for example, I think in the before, like, you mentioned how some of these guys don't like train for weeks, and then they come back and they just dominate
yeah.
on the pitch.
Dominic from the first training back from an injury, and then they're just the best player in training. It's crazy. And I think the most obvious one is Neres when we played against Benfica.
Mhm.
It was like he was, he was floating on the grass. It's it's amazing when you see it.
Yeah.
He was so fast and so calm on the ball. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of it's the result of so many years on the streets playing football back in Brazil, and where you really become molded by the game, as opposed to trying to use trying to use drills and cones and mannequins and all these like special techniques to create performance, where there already is a better way to do it that's worked for decades, just playing
Yeah,
football. And then underlying that is having the athletic qualities and the health qualities that are naturally existing in some of these countries like Brazil, being being lower latitude, there being less indoor living, people being outdoors more, people more likely to be eating local food as opposed to, you know, food that's been flown in from across the world. All those kind of modern conveniences that in the first world, you know, like America and the UK,
Yeah.
we kind of really take for granted, but it's really not the way that we were meant to work.
No.
Um,
I did.
but you mentioned uh David in the Champions League. So how how big is that gap really? Because I think a lot of aspiring and even lower level professional players, they kind of don't understand like how really built different those guys are at the top.
Yeah, it's just I think you have to experience it to really understand. But even though as you know, I've been doing your work for a long time, and I feel like he was the only player on the field where I didn't move as good at it as he did.
Mhm.
You know, I feel like even though I feel fresh and my legs are good and I move very, very good, I just feel like no matter what I do, he's gonna run past me or not make me or something. It's just when you experience it, because of course I've seen Champions League since I was a kid, and always wondered was wondering how it felt like playing against those guys, and you know, just doing it and seeing it so close. It's just yeah, it's amazing. And I, I was running around on the field thinking this guy is just moving so good, and I was just so amazed.
Yeah, it's you can kind of see that there is more levels.
Yeah,
And you know,
of course.
there's someone like Tavernides, who obviously is a great player, but then above that, like where's the next level from him? You know, obviously someone like Neymar, uh, probably in the same age bracket, maybe someone like Rafinha or or like possibly even Anthony.
Yeah,
And you kind of understand that there are these levels that from outside the football world kind of blend together. And if you don't understand what really makes elite performance and it actually allows the body to move in that dynamic and fluid manner so effortlessly, you really almost don't have a clue because there's so much you're missing out there.
yeah,
Um,
it's true.
so what do you think? So now that you've kind of experienced playing against guys like that, what do you think it requires physically to make it at that level? Obviously, I think we already mentioned glute dominance, you know, being fascial driven, the super high, the mitochondrial function, the ability to make things look effortless, and then also there's just the basic football intelligence that you develop from playing lots and lots and lots of football.
Yeah, I think that's a hard question.
Of course.
I think you know at this level, as you talk, there's different levels to it, and I think it's so obvious that the guys who's at the top is like as you say, facial driven, and then I think all the guys under that is just the same. You know, they can run not very fast, and some of them can jump high. But I think the stuff that separates when you get to this level is the mental part and
Hmm.
the your football ability. Because sometimes when we play cup games, you play lower lower level teams, and the players there are just as strong, just as fast, to most of the guys in our team.
Hmm.
But I think what separates is the mental and the football ability. So for me,
Hmm.
it's not the physical stuff. It's if the physical stuff is if you want to take it to the next level. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people is at the same physical, level, and then of course, when you know about this stuff, you can go on an even higher level.
Hmm.
But for most people, I think it's the mental and the football ability that separates from other people.
Yeah, there certainly is a big aspect of the mental side of things where like I some of those people some of those guys at the highest level, just the way they walk, or just the way they stand, or just the way that they look into the camera, like on TV,
Yeah,
they're like you can tell that there is a much higher level of not um not ego, but just this quality that you really believe that you're the guy.
yeah,
Like like it's so unconscious that you just know that you're the guy and you're meant to be there. And I think a lot of footballers, especially unknowingly, sabotage their success because somewhere down the line, someone told them that they don't deserve to be, you know, a good player or to be athletic or to be healthy. I think
yeah,
many injuries can be caused by this like low self-esteem where you don't think you deserve to be healthy, and so your body kind of sabotages itself over time. But
for
yeah,
sure.
and then the footballing ability, obviously, yeah,
Yeah, it's obvious.
it's like that's what you develop by playing the game, by actually tossing yourself into the flow state of small-sided play. Um, Obviously, everyone wishes that they could go back to being a kid and just play for 6, 7 hours on the court with their friends. But
Yeah,
that environment is where guys like Neres and Anthony are made. They're molded. And if you lose, you're off the court. If you win, you stay on. And a lot of times the only way out of those environments, uh, as far as financially, is to become a pro footballer. So there's a much higher threat on their life. If they don't make it as a pro footballer, they might have to, go into crime or do do something that is, you know, kind of leaves them stuck for life in that environment, as opposed to, kind of getting out of the
yeah, yeah.
of that environment. But we have a few more questions before we wrap up, and I wanted to kind of kind of retrace our steps and just walk people through some of the injuries, or the issues that you had before a football entangled.
Yeah, actually, I haven't had a lot of injuries.
Mhm.
I've had a few ankle sprains, and then a few years ago, I was told I had sports hernia. I think
Mhm.
that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But this the, why I started to look for different solutions and stuff. It's because when I played, I easily felt tired, and after games, 2, 3 days after games, I would still feel tired,
Mhm.
and I felt like my body was not broken down, but it was tearing on my body all the time, and I was thinking, I'm 19, 18, 20 years old. It's too early for that to
Yeah.
happen. So actually, I think I've been lucky with injuries, and then I'm just curious to because I think I reflect a lot of how I feel after I've done certain things, and I reflect on how I move, uh, and I just think my curiosity forced me to
Mhm.
find new solutions because I was thinking to myself, I need to get you know I need to move better because I'm so young. And then doing this when the football ability is getting better as well, it's just amazing. So I just being curious and reflecting on the stuff you experience when you go through periods where your body feels bad or tired, or if you had a lot of injuries. I just think you should think about what have I done the last week and how did I feel the day after I did this, and so on and so on.
Mhm.
um, and I also think that's why, even though for a long time I did stuff for my body that wasn't so good, but I think that's why I've been lucky and not having so many injuries.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure, I think a lot of, young players. Well, sadly, like right now, currently, there is a really big injury epidemic as far as players at the age of 13, 14, 15 years old are having ACL surgeries.
Yeah,
And it's really sad because their career as an athlete it's not over, obviously, but I mean, that's a big setback at that young of an age to have such a serious injury and then be forced to do a full surgery to repair the torn ligament. It's no small thing to open up the human body with knives and anesthesia, and then to put it back together again afterwards. Because people might not know this, but well, so far it is pretty humanly impossible to repair the fascia after it's been cut open. There's no way that you can just, put like piece and piece back together. It's fascia is so integrated and so woven that it you can't really undo cutting it apart. So I think that that's a big aspect of surgery that people don't know about. And especially nowadays with how many injuries there are, people really need to focus in on and take care of their health, of their recovery, of their performance, and every little thing they do, because all of those things add up. And at the end of the day, when you're 18, 19, 20, and you're on the brink of going somewhere, and if you get hurt, it's kind of over, and you miss out on that big opportunity. But I wanted to ask you one last question. I know earlier, like you mentioned, that you kind of get some like sideways looks in the club as far as doing things differently, and people ask you, why do you do this, why do you do that, and I I think, yeah, it's pretty normal just to have that kind of experience where you aren't following kind of like you aren't following the bandwagon of just going along with it, right? And
Mm.
you want to take full responsibility of your health, of your performance, because at the end of the day, it's on you. If you get hurt, there's no, like, the physio isn't having surgery with you. It's like you alone on the hospital bed. And that's
Yeah,
one of the things that people, they don't take, or even super high level professional athletes don't take full responsibility for their health, even though their job's on the line, all their money, all their sponsorships, and their contracts are on the line, but they let a strength coach or a physio kind of influence it so much, but
yeah.
without knowing any better. But my question was, how do you how do you see in the future kind of this new way of working spreading itself into clubs like FC Michelin?
Um, I think for sure there's gonna be more people working like this,
Mhm,
because it only takes, in this example, it only took one curious guy to get a few people in the club working like this. So I think for sure it'll spread throughout Europe and the US, um, because you see all the guys working, everyone is working the same way,
mhm.
and you just see the guys who's not working like you are doing better. So I think for sure it'll spread. I'm sure about that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is results, and you just let your work, or you let your work on the pitch d- do, do the talking,
yeah,
and eventually, people, once they're able to swallow their ego, swallow their pride, they'll come and ask,
yeah,
how did you all of a sudden have such effortless recovery, and be able to play the full 90 minutes with stamina that looks like you've been doing thousands and thousands of miles of running, but really, like, you've just been transforming the function in the body. You've been making your body more effortless and a better mover.
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, this was an amazing talk. I'm sure it'll do really amazing on YouTube. There's a lot of guys that are looking forward to hearing from that are looking forward to hearing from players like yourself at a high level that are implementing all these health and training protocols inside of Football Entangled. Where can where's the best place for guys to find you, guys to follow you on social media?
Instagram. Instagram's the
Instagram.
only, yeah, it's the only media I use.
Okay.
So just on Instagram, and I'm not I'm not very active, so but
Yeah, no
maybe
worries.
if there's a lot of people that's wanting to see how I work and stuff, maybe I'll be more active. But yeah, Instagram is the only place actually where you can find
Awesome.
me.
We'll put your link and we'll put your Instagram username in the description below the video. And if people want to get in touch, or want to follow you, want to see how you're doing on the pitch, they can follow you there and obviously watch some FC Michelin matches on TV.
Yeah, that would be nice.
100%, man. Well, Oliver, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's very
Yes.
good talk.